Good afternoon. Welcome to today's informational webinar with the New Jersey Department of Education on the State Seal of Biliteracy. This afternoon's webinar focuses on and with those of you who are already implementing the seal. I'm Mary Curran at Rutgers Graduate School of Education, where I direct the Office of Local Global Partnerships, and we are collaborating together with the New Jersey Department of Education on the State Seal of Biliteracy project. You may have seen some recent newsletters coming up, and at the end of this webinar, we'll tell you about some other upcoming webinars in the future. Some logistical things before I introduce today's speakers. We're going to save the questions for the end of our conversation today. You can put them into the chat and we'll save them and respond if we have time. Hopefully we'll have time to respond to all of you, and if not, we will respond to everybody individually. An important thing to note is that today's webinar will be recorded. So by participating, you're giving us permission to record you. If you do not want to be recorded, don't want to participate in the recording, that's fine. The presentation will be sent to you and will be available online as an accessible slide deck. Just so you know, we have this arranged so that you're all muted. You can also turn off your video on the bottom left side. It gives you the option to join video. You don't have to do that. And your chats will be recorded though, so we will save those messages and respond to them. So I'd like to begin by introducing you to Lori Ramella. Lori is the bilingual ESL coordinator at the New Jersey Department of Education. She's worked there for the last 15 years. Fortunately, she has been involved with the Seal of Biliteracy since its inception during the 2016-17 school year, and she very much looks forward to working with all of you. Maria Encarna Romero is the new World Languages Coordinator at the New Jersey Department of Education. She was formerly a classroom teacher and then a supervisor for the Carteret Public Schools in World Languages, ESL, and Bilingual Education. She holds a BA in Spanish Instruction and Social Studies, an MA in Bilingual Ed and ESL, and is a doctoral candidate in the field of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. Joining us today is also Jack Motisha. He's a supervisor in the New Jersey Department of Education IT department. So thank you for attending, and we'll begin. If you have any questions, you can write them in the chat and I'll reply.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that very nice introduction. Hello, everyone. This is Lori Ramella, and welcome to our Seal of Biliteracy webinar. All of you are old pros, so we don't expect any questions today, right? Because you're the experienced ones. This is what we will be discussing with you this afternoon. We will be sharing some of our data from the 2017-18 school year and from prior years. We will let you know how students can demonstrate linguistic proficiency, how they actually attain acceptable scores to show that they are biliterate, which tests can be used to demonstrate that. We will also let you know about the implementation timeline for the 18-19 school year, the data collection process, information about the spreadsheet submission, some resources that we have for all of you, the difference between the insignia and the seal. And as Mary mentioned, we will take the questions and concerns in the chat box. And although we will answer them at the end, please feel free to enter them at any time during today's webinar. Just to let all of you know a little bit about the history of the Seal of Biliteracy, this initiative really began with the two statewide language organizations, NJTSOL, NJBE, which is New Jersey Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages, and New Jersey Bilingual Educators, as well as FLENG, which is the Foreign Language Educators of New Jersey. And in 13-14, they began a pilot with only 7 districts. And then as you could see, as the years went on, those number of districts increased from 7 to 12 to 23, and the number of certificates awarded also increased. And you will see that same trend when it became state legislation, as we share with some data with you later on that the numbers have increased over time since it became the New Jersey Department of Education's initiative and state legislation. For the 17-18 school year, some of the data about the seal, as you can see here, there were 120 districts that participated from 20 different counties out of our 21 counties in the state of New Jersey. And this number has definitely grown. We had 3,579 students get awarded the seal in the 17-18 school year. And then just looking back to the 16-17 school year, when this initiative first became legislation, there were 85 districts and 2,015 seals awarded to students. And as I did indicate, we expect to see an increase this year as well. This particular graph will share with all of you what tests were used and the number of students using the different tests that can be taken to award students the state seal of biliteracy. On the left side of this graph provides you with the percentages of students who took these different assessments, and across the bottom of this bar graph are the different assessments that had been used in the 17-18 school year. The tests on the bottom that you will hear about a few times during today's presentation are those that can be used to demonstrate proficiency. The first one being the APPLE, then the ELIRA, the AP or Advanced Placement, the ASLPI, which is a sign language assessment, IB, which is an International Baccalaureate, OPI, the Oral Proficiency Interview, the SLPI, which is another sign language assessment, the STAMP test, the Access for ELS, which is a proficiency test for English language learner students, and then some tests that fell under the category of other. This bar graph indicates that STAMP and Access for ELS were the most popular in the 17-18 school year. Again, in 17-18, the seals of biliteracy that were awarded were in 20 different languages for students, as you can see here, beginning with American Sign Language, Arabic, Chinese, French, and so on. But the most popular languages were Spanish at 73.5%, then French at 8.3%, and Italian at 4.7%. And there were actually 3 students who qualified for attaining a state seal in 3 languages. Based on the assessments that were used to demonstrate proficiency in English, because if a student is going to show that he or she is biliterate, they need to show it both in English and in another language or languages. So the assessments that were used for proficiency in English are those that you see here. Access for ELS, which is the English Language Learner Proficiency Assessment, the AccuPlacer Right Placer for ESL, the ACT, the ASVAB, IEP exemption, students who take the New Jersey Department of Education Portfolio Appeal, PARC, PSAT, and SAT. And out of these 10 assessments, the most popular were PARC at 54.8%, PSAT, and then SAT. And then in looking at those other languages to demonstrate proficiency, there were 7 assessments that were used to demonstrate proficiency in world languages: the AP Language and Culture exam, the APPLE test, the AXFL Latin Interpretive Reading Assessment, or the ELIRA International Baccalaureate, and so on. The most popular ones here were STAMP at 38.7%, APPLE at 35.7%, and then the ELIRA at 8.2%. So again, in order for students to demonstrate their proficiency both in English and in another language, what must they do? They must, number one, demonstrate their proficiency in English. And one of the ways in which they can do that is by meeting the state high school graduation requirements or the alternatives to that. If the student is an English language learner, he or she needs to meet an appropriate cut score on the Access for ELS test. And we have all the scores outlined on the State Seal of Biliteracy website, which you will see later on. And then in addition, the students also have to demonstrate that language proficiency in the other language or languages, so the languages other than English. And they need to do that by attaining an intermediate mid score that aligns with the ACT Full Proficiency Guidelines. And then if it is a student who's taking American Sign Language, a level that is equivalent to that IM or intermediate mid. These are the English language arts assessments that can be used to demonstrate the proficiency in English, and these align with the high school graduation requirements as well. And then again, if a student is an English language learner, he or she needs to attain a score of 4 or higher in all of the domains, either on a tier B or a tier C. And then these are the assessments that can be used for demonstration of world language proficiency, as you saw earlier on the bar graph. And please note that if you have a language or languages for which there is no test available, we will review that on an individual basis. And please feel free to email us, as we have provided that contact information at the end of today's presentation. I'm going to now turn it over to Maria Romero and Jack Motisha.
Hi, everyone. This is Maria Romero, and I'll be sharing the mic with my colleague, Jack Motisha. Any questions you have will be answered at the end of this presentation, or you can email either Lori Romella or myself, and we will certainly get back to you. The webinar is going to be saved, so if you missed something or you want to review something, you can look back on the webinar. This slide has some frequently asked questions regarding the testing, the upload of the test. So let's go through it. It's important information. All of your student testing should be completed by March 1st. That will require that you do your testing now through the end of February. On January 15th, you will be receiving a spreadsheet from the DOE. This spreadsheet is where you will log in information regarding your students who were tested, the ones that you think are going to receive the seal because of their test results. You'll enter all the information and then upload that spreadsheet to the New Jersey homeroom. So make sure that you are looking at these deadlines. Do not miss the deadlines. So next week on January 15th, we will be opening homeroom, and you will receive that spreadsheet. At any point during that time frame, you may upload, but the deadline for testing is March 1st. That gives our vendors time to get their information together, because you're giving them permission to share that information with us. And on March 15th, you will upload the spreadsheet to homeroom. Here's 2 questions. Our students have completed the world language assessments, but we are still waiting to see whether they have attained the appropriate cut scores for the English language arts assessment. Can they still receive a seal? And the answer is yes. However, if the data is not submitted by the Excel sheet submission deadline, we cannot guarantee that they will receive that certificate before graduation so that you can give it to them. If a student is taking the portfolio, please contact us and let us know so that we can look for that information. Can our English language learners demonstrate ELA proficiency through the portfolio appeals process? The answer is yes. However, the responses must be in the English language. As you know, portfolio can be done in a foreign language. So in order to qualify for English proficiency, the responses in the portfolio would have had to have been written in the English language. Should we include students on the spreadsheet who we anticipate will receive a seal pending portfolio reviews? The answer is no. You should not include the names of the students who have not yet obtained English proficiency scores, including those going through the portfolio review. Remember, contact us with the information about those students who are doing portfolio so that we can then add them to your spreadsheet when we find out their portfolio response approval. So I hope this clarifies a little bit. If not, please write into the chat any question that I can answer regarding these two questions. Mary, do we have any questions regarding this spreadsheet right now?
Not regarding the spreadsheet. They're more about assessments to this point, so I'll save them to the end.
Very good. So we'll answer any questions regarding the assessments themselves till the very end. Here's our timeline, so you can see it at this point. If you see the timeline, we're in January. You will be receiving the spreadsheet next week, January 15th. We will review that spreadsheet in the next few slides. Make sure to do your testing from now through the end of February. By March 1st, you need to have completed your testing so that the vendors have time to submit that information to us. On March 15th, take that spreadsheet that you have completed and upload it to the homeroom portal. Remember, you need a special ID from your district web administrator or your business administrator in order to log on to homeroom. This is not the same as having an ID for NJ Smart. And then we review the information, the data, print out the certificates, and mail certificates to you by the end of May or early June. The data collection process is very simple. All testing scores must be completed. There are no exceptions to this because it does not give our vendors time to collect the information to submit to us. Individual test vendors will share that data with us. You will complete your spreadsheet. You will enter all students that you know have obtained passing scores. You will upload that spreadsheet to homeroom on March 15th. And then we will mail you certificates by the end of May. Let's go over that spreadsheet. You're going to find 3 tabs on the spreadsheet. And we're going to show it on the screen so you see what it's like. It has changed since last year, so please carefully follow our instructions. You have 3 tabs. The first is the SEAL coordinator information. The second is a student score information, which is the more complex tab, and it must be carefully, you must carefully enter the information into the correct columns. And the third tab is a statement of assurance tab, where you are going to click and indicate that all the information on the spreadsheet is correct. In front of you, you have the spreadsheet. So I'm going to turn it over to Jack, who's now going to speak to you about the spreadsheet.
As Maria said, we have 3 tabs here. The first tab is the SEAL coordinator information. I'm going to really speak to the information that's more generic here. The more specific information that deals with the biliteracy program itself will be discussed by Maria. If you look on the first tab, you'll see SEAL district. That is, I believe, are we asking for the code there as well? On the first tab, are we asking for the code for the district as well on the first tab? The SEAL district.
Yes, because we want to know who you are, what district you're working for. So I'm going to need that information.
Okay, so what we have here is your 4-digit district, New Jersey DOE district code. If you're not sure what that district code is, please ask your administrator, your principal. This is a code that's been in existence existence for quite some time. It's 4 digits. And there are leading zeros in some districts. If you have a leading zero or leading zeros, please include them. School name is really a free-form entry. You can enter any school name that you want. And you have your coordinator information. I think you might want to add a little bit if there's more than one.
I want to add something about the school name, because I received a question from someone some time back indicating they had 2 high schools rather than 1 in their district. You can enter both names under school name, 1 on each line, of course. But if you're the same coordinator, it doesn't really matter. Just keep the 2 names there so I can recognize them. But the district code is going to be the same for both schools, just in case you do have 2 high schools and you want to enter both high schools under that column, okay?
I need to get to the second tab.
Let's go to the second tab here.
Okay, the second tab deals with the individual student information you're going to be entering. I want to be very clear that in processing this information across the whole state, some of the issues I've come across where we may have gaps in rows or duplicate information or additional information. Please, you enter 1 student per row, beginning in row number 2. So the first piece of information in column A is the county code. The county code is any number between, it's an odd number between 01 and 21. That is, again, that's part of our county district school code configuration. You can get that county code from your administrator if you need to do it. An example 23 would be Middlesex. Yes.
So,
01 is Atlantic, yes.
So if you're Middlesex County, you're number 23.
Yes. But again, your administrator, your principal will know it's part of their county district school code configuration. County name is obviously your county name. District code, we're back to that again, as like on the first tab. It must be a 4-character, 4-digit. I say character because we do have leading zeros. So if you have a leading 0 in your district code or leading zeros, please include that. Do not expand upon this this column. I've seen in the past where people would merge their county code and their district code in this. It's very difficult for us to pull this and get statewide data if we don't follow a certain format. So I'd ask that you please keep this in a 4-digit format. District name is self-explanatory. School code is a 3-digit or again 3-character with could be leading zeros of your school code. Your administration will know that if you don't know that. Again, leading zeros, make sure it's included, and the school name is just a free form entry. Make sure you enter the school name. Just right off the top, I will tell you that if you enter the county code correctly, your district code correctly, your school code correctly, we will more than likely pull what we have in-house for your county name, district name, and school name. I think it's very important that we include these also, the names, just in case somebody did leave off a leading zero, somebody did make a little mistake here and there. Sometimes we can determine who it is, but we really don't want to do that. Column G is a state identification number. That is your NJ Smart student ID. Again, if there's leading zeros there, I'm not quite sure. There may be a leading zero in this, but make sure you include the leading zero. And again, you have a local identification number. That's the students. Maybe you have a local ID within your district that your district assigns to this student. Please include that too, because it could be very, very important if we need to refer back to you about a specific student or a problem. We will have that local identification number. It may be easier for you to look that up in your own system than the state identification number.
Please be careful with this information, especially in column G and H, because it means the difference between getting a student getting the seal and us not being able to locate the student at all, and so he doesn't get his seal in a timely manner. Because we have to research who it is, etc. It's very easy sometimes to flip and put in under state ID, put in the local ID. We're begging you to be very careful about this, because we can't read the spreadsheet if the information is not entered correctly.
There's one question about this part of the spreadsheet. does the school information and all of this information only need to be entered once? Does it need to go on every line?
Every single student, every line represents a different student. So therefore, every single line has to be completed again and again because each student is an individual. So we need to locate that individual student. So it's going to have to be.
I'm going to chime in on that simply from the IT department. Remember, we're pulling in all of the spreadsheet information from all of the districts. So once we pull these all in, we're going to have the information completed completely on every row in order for us to have complete information on a statewide database of this information.
All right, so if we continue on, you then have to enter the student's first name, the student's last name. Now we come to the ELA.
I just wanted to add something about last name that's coming to mind as well. Please indicate the student's exact last name as it appears on school records, right? And in NJ Smart and all those other places. So if the student has a hyphenated last name and that's the official way to indicate it, please do that.
I'm glad Lori brought that out because a lot of times we've noticed in the past that the student's first name is his preferred first name and his last name is a hyphenated last name and the person only wrote the first part of that last name. So it's important that the information you enter is the child's legal name that appears in NJ Smart so that it matches NJ Smart information and we're able to pull it. Okay, this is very important. The information should be the same name, first and last, that appears on student records in your data system and NJ Smart. They should all be matching up. The ELA assessment or Access for L's assessment, this is the assessment with which the student got, was able to prove proficiency, whether it's PARC, whether it's Access for L's, whether it's whatever assessment you use that's listed on our website. You can only use those assessments that we have placed on our website that are approved by the New Jersey Department of Education to prove proficiency and meet graduation requirements. Let's move to the next. Here we have a drop-down, ELA status. You have three choices. See that? Either the student was never an L. That means not a refusal L, but was never an L, never considered for services, nothing at all like that. You would click on never an L, okay, and it would fill in there. If the student is currently an L, that means either he or she is receiving ESL services or refused ESL services, whichever. The student's still an L, a current L, until they pass or get a passing score on the Access for L's. Or the student is now a former L, in which case, at one point in this child's educational process, he was considered for L services. And now he is not because he passed. We would like to know, regardless of whether that was 12 years ago, we would like to know. This is about data as well as information to know who our students are. Now, let's take a look here. If you put in this column L that the child was a current L or that the child is a former L, then when you come to column M, you have a choice for current L. Let's pull current L here. Let me go back to my current L. If I put in current L and I go over here and I have my drop down, I could choose between year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say the child's in year 7. I can write in to the box year 7. It will accept my written response as well as one of my drop down responses. Let's say I go here and I wrote in the child was a former L. Then I can come here and I can mark former 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or as I said before, I can write in a response and say former 12, because a child 12 years ago was an L. Okay. Now, I know some of you might have some questions for me, like, hey, Maria, I don't know that information. 12 years ago, we weren't keeping records. Okay, I can understand that. I can understand that response. We want you, to the best of your knowledge and what your child's CUME folder says, because that information should be in a CUME folder if you can't find it. But I know that going back 12 years might be hard for you, but do your best to find the information. We really want to know what that information is.
I want to chime in here. I think the question was about entering redundant information on the spreadsheet. Remember, this is an Excel spreadsheet, and it's a standalone spreadsheet. Once you download it, it's on your local machine. So any options that are available to Excel, you can incorporate or you can use. And what I mean by that is, if you have something like that's redundant and you're entering a certain column, an ELL status of XYZ, and it appears in 60 straight rows, you can certainly copy and paste this is an Excel spreadsheet. You can use any Excel commands that you feel that if you somewhat are an expert, you want to cut and paste and copy redundant information, you can certainly do that. So that was a question. I hopefully that can.
The question was mostly about like the district code and the
you can
code
certainly, yes, you can certainly.
Copy and paste is a great way to do that.
Yes, when you have a district code and for it's 50 students, just copy the first one and paste it all the way down, and you don't have to enter it over and over again. But when we say entering, I said it's not really necessarily entering. It just has to be present in that column for every row. How you get it there, if you want to copy and paste, that's fine.
Someone's suggesting that, if you just drag down, it will copy into each cell.
Correct.
And that won't affect anything with numbers in it.
I mean, this just requires your knowledge of Excel commands. And if you have a way of, copying and pasting and bringing it down and whatever you want to do, as long as it appears there, that's fine. Now let's take a look at column N. Here you have the language other than English in which a child is receiving the certificate of biliteracy, the seal of biliteracy. We have a drop down for you. I put in 5 of the most common languages: Spanish, French, Italian, Mandarin, Chinese, and German. But let's say your child received it in Punjabi. I can type in the language in which the child is receiving the seal. Now, the next thing you have to tell me about Punjabi or language 1 is, sorry, I just enlarged that really, really a lot. How do I get it down? Let me unzoom this. I went too far down. Hold on. I'm playing with the computer, everybody. See what we were talking about? If you have a knowledge of Excel, that shouldn't happen. But here it goes. I want to show how my student ended up showing proficiency in Punjabi. Now, here's the question is, let's say for Punjabi, there's an OPI, but there's no WPT. So you're going to have to write in, if it's not a stamp, it's not an apple, it's not IB. How did the child show proficiency? You could also, how do we manage other with this? Just typing in the other test. So, for example, for the Punjabi language, my student would do an OPI because that exists for the listening, speaking, but for the written part, that was a test that was created by the district. I would have to write in district created test. Now, with those district created tests, incidentally, this is an aside, if you have a language in which a student, in which there is no, from our list of tests, there is no test, you need to call us. So, and we'll talk about how you get to create your own test, if that's even a possibility for your language. But you can type into this box to write in how your student is going to show proficiency. One other thing with the typing in, and I'm losing my train of thought. Anyway, you have to type in, you can type in another test. Remember, it has to be aligned with the ACTFL standards. So make sure that any test you choose that's not on the list, you call us to make sure that it's an approved test, that we can get it approved, and it's got to be aligned to the ACTFL standards.
You're getting a question about, just this morning, someone asked about a Georgian and Ukrainian exam and was told these tests were not offered. So what then do they do about that?
Those folks have to call me. There are very few options out there. If OPI and WPT don't have them, we can talk about a district creating a test, but that requires some certified teacher in those languages. But we may search other states for tests. Some states have created their own ACTFL aligned tests, and so please give me a call, because we can address one language at a time and look for it.
And two things, I was going to add something to what Maria was saying about these columns, but before I say that, just going along with the question about the other languages that might not have an acceptable test, I do know that NYU has a list of tests as well, so that might help too.
They're not aligned to the ACTFL. I thought NYU was an approved site as well, and I called them, and it turned out they're not aligned to the ACTFL test, so we can't use them.
And what I wanted to say about columns N and O and the next few columns, these are different. You're the experienced people, so you never saw it like that before, like this before. And this is because the most recent school year, on your district performance reports, you received information about students attaining the seal of biliteracy. And in order to provide that data, the initial collection that you're giving to us here will help to provide that to the performance report. So this is really how we had to refine it, so that when we work with the performance office, they can capture that information on the district performance report.
We have quite a few questions about assessments, but do you want to wait till you show them tab 3 first?
Okay. If that student, let's continue with this student. Let's say his name is John Smith. If John Smith wants a seal of biliteracy in more than one foreign language, you can again go now to column Q, and there again write in or choose from the tab, to P, column P, and there go choose from the tab the language he's getting his second seal in, or she, as in Joanne Smith, she is getting a seal in. And again, you would tell me what instrument you use to show proficiency, so forth and so on, as many languages as you want on the very same line for that student. So you're not jumping lines. One last thing about the spreadsheet is that please do not create a new column at the end of your spreadsheet. No new columns. Do not add messages for me or for Lori in the spreadsheet. I'm not going to be reading them there. You need to speak to me, call me, email me, call Lori, email Lori about questions you may have, but do not add information such as, John is doing the portfolio. He's going to be getting the seal. I know he's going to pass. Don't write that into the spreadsheet. Remember, portfolio students, call me. Let me know who's your portfolio student. That student is obviously not going to receive a certificate at the end of May or beginning of June, because we don't have that information, but we'll get it later on. And that way we can be on the lookout for that information from you when you finally have the scores for those portfolio students. And again, I'm going to say the portfolio, if it's for an ELL student, please make sure that the portfolio responses are written in the English language, even though some portfolios can be written for Ls in a foreign language. You need to have them do it in the English language or use another instrument to show proficiency.
Okay, you have a few questions here. One is, if the student is not testing for a third or additional languages, do you just leave it blank, or do you want an NA?
No, just leave everything blank.
Okay.
Whatever doesn't require response stays blank.
Okay. And another question is, someone said basically what you're saying too is this is not the same spreadsheet as last year. So do not use last year's
That's
spreadsheet.
right.
That's
very
correct.
good. That's
Absolutely.
They
very
should
good.
not use last
Because
year's
we'll have to
spreadsheet.
send it back. We'll have to reject it.
We will reject it.
And then somebody asked this question too, if somebody is doing multiple languages, not just two, you know, do they receive a seal of multiliteracy, or are they getting multiple seals of biliteracy, or what happens?
It's one certificate that will indicate the languages in which the student attained the seal, and then it's really up to the district how they might want to indicate that on the transcript.
Okay, and then we have this question, how are they going to get this new spreadsheet?
We're sending it next week.
Okay.
We're emailing it to all of you next week.
It's emailed to the list of supervisors or people who have signed up to participate in this year's Seal of Biliteracy.
And even people who are not on the webinar today, if their district had indicated participation, then they will receive it as well.
Now, our last tab is the Statement of Assurance. Here you just simply have a sentence that indicates that you have entered the information, that you certify that all the information included in this document is truthful, and that everything is correct, the students' names are spelled correctly, etc., etc. You are going to go to column B. You're going to check column B, and then you have completed your work on this tab, indicating that you understand that everything is accurate and truthful.
Jeff, do you want to add about if they're changing the spreadsheet,
I'm
submitting
going
a new
right now.
one?
Yeah, before we move past the spreadsheet, so we're going to some
Okay.
final things about the spreadsheet. Again, once you get the spreadsheet and you download the spreadsheet on your local machine, you're really working. Anything you do in that spreadsheet is local. We do not get any information until you actually upload it to homeroom. So if you get it on January 15th, you want to start entering 10 students, you can do it, save it on your local machine. You know, you get more a little bit later, you can continue to build on this, and you can upload it anytime up until March 15th. Now, if you upload it, let's say at the end of February, you think you are done, and you find out you are not done. You still have the spreadsheet local on your machine. You just make the changes, make the additions or make the deletions, make some updates, and you can re-upload the spreadsheet. What we ask is that you keep the spreadsheet the same name, because it will force an overwrite of your old spreadsheet. If you name it something else, we will then get two spreadsheets from you, and a lot of times we don't know at first glance which is the real accurate spreadsheet. The next thing I want to add is that, again, this is uploaded through the New Jersey Homeroom website. You will see a line about 2/3 of the way down on Homeroom that will say Seal of Biliteracy. That's where you click. That's where the dialogue will open up, where you can drag and drop or copy and paste your spreadsheet. In order to do this, this might pertain to some of the new people here, you will need a login ID and password into Homeroom for the Seal of Biliteracy. And what I say at that is people have a login and login ID and password to Homeroom for other applications other than the Seal of Biliteracy. If you have that login ID and password and you do not have authorization to use the Seal of Biliteracy, you will not be able to get in and upload your spreadsheet. A good way to check on this is that every district has what's called a web user administrator that maintains a list of login IDs and passwords for access to all New Jersey Homeroom applications. So if you're not sure if you have a login ID or password, if you need a login ID and password, or if you have a login ID and password and need access to the Seal of Biliteracy, your web user administrator, or your what's might be called now the Homeroom administrator at the district level will be able to assist you. And most of the time, the web user administrators are either the business administrator or somebody in the business office.
Okay.
We have some questions.
We have some questions. You want them now?
Can
They're
you-
mostly about
yes.
assessments. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So here is the first one. So is it the case that an L student must meet the 4.5 score from Access 2018? If they have not, is there any other measure that will work? So just for clarifying, senior Ls who meet the 4.5 in 2019 they won't make the deadline. Is that correct?
Not if they're using the Access for Ls, but they can use one of the other acceptable English assessments.
Okay. So there
Wait a
are,
minute, am I understanding the question correctly? Are they asking for the cutoff score on the Access for Ls in order to get the seal?
they're asking for the year, I think.
So if they're using Access, it would have to be 2018.
Yes, that was the question.
Yes, is that the
Um,
question?
Laura-
Yes, they would
Laura,
have to
if
use
that
2018.
doesn't answer your question, right again. The other question is, it appears, Justin Miller is asking, it appears the stamp score was lowered to a 5 or higher from a 6. The students that took the test as juniors and achieved higher than a 5 qualified for seals.
I believe the stamp 5 is higher, is more than intermediate mid. I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me as to what intermediate mid corresponds to on the stamp test. I'm trying to remember. So I believe it was a 5. It might be, if we go to the web page. Can we go to the web page somehow and look for that? The brochure should have the cutoffs.
This is here, while you're looking that up, I'll ask the
Mhm.
next question. It's about the OPI or the OPIC. The list said the OPI, the OPIC, the computer version, but there's an OPI 15 to 30 minute interview, and
Yeah.
the OPIC is 20 to 40 minutes computer based. LTI told me it is the OPI our students should take, not the OPIC.
Actually, both are
Right. They're both
accepted.
accepted.
Both
Okay.
are accepted.
Great. Should I go to the next question? or-
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
The next question, I think somebody answered this on here for her already. If a student passes the AP Language and Culture test, would they be able to get the seal even though they received the scores in July?
They can.
Yes.
Anything after January of the junior year is acceptable evidence.
Okay, so clearly it won't though if they're a senior, right?
Right.
So if they're
It won't come
junior,
back in
yes.
time. If they're seniors, it won't be back in time.
Okay. Do you want to answer that previous message? Or are you
Yes,
looking for
here it
the
is.
info?
If you look here, I have the pointer on it. A score of intermediate mid is 5 or higher on the stamp.
Okay, good. Here's the next question. Someone's asking, I have a student that was in level 4 Spanish that took the stamp test, but was a sophomore when he took it. Will those scores still count for him since he's not graduating until next year? He passed the test last year. He was also a former L.
They do not count.
It has to
Only
be-
scores taken after January of the junior year count for the seal.
Okay. Here's a spreadsheet question. I understand that we only upload names of graduating seniors. We sit on the information for juniors who meet the requirement. Is there no way to begin to upload their names as well? I'm thinking for cases when a student moves districts or when the person responsible for completing the spreadsheet changes roles or leaves the district.
No.
No, you need to keep that for yourselves. We can't take it any earlier than when we ask for it. Because just imagine the numbers of the district information we're collecting, the number of students, we wouldn't be able to keep track of all that.
Okay. Here's a question. Qualifying scores in Park, are they acceptable for any year from 9th through 11th grade?
Only those exams taken after the January of the junior year will count towards the seal.
Another question is, I thought they had to have access and another assessment again? I just want to be clear on this.
No,
If the student is an English language learner, they can use Access.
Okay.
But then they also have to have the other language to demonstrate proficiency, so Spanish or Portuguese, Gujarati. And then I think maybe why this question just came may have caused confusion because I think an earlier question was about if they took Access, can they use it in 2000 and like the score for 2019? And we said no, it can only be from 2018 junior year.
Okay.
And then I had said earlier that they could use some other evidence of English proficiency, but not Access unless it's from junior 2008.
Okay, here's a question about the ASLPI. Do students sign up for it on their site, or do we need to be there when they take the test?
ASLPAR, which is
That's for sign language.
sign language.
Well, that's really going to be up to the district and thinking about how you oversee or administer any other tests for this distinction. I would say to follow the same protocol.
Okay, good. Thanks to everybody for chiming in on the stamp info. I like seeing a lot of my former students and friends out there. Here's the next question.
I wanted to clarify something,
Okay.
going back to the access for Ls. We spoke about what access, 2018. But let's say your student did not meet the cutoffs on the access for Ls for 2018. Now you could turn to another assessment in order to have that student, one of the other acceptable assessments, to have that student try to meet the cutoffs.
So if they pass PARC or the portfolio or any of those
The
other options
Accuplacer.
for English, the Accuplacer, if they've attained that passing score, then that's okay too.
Okay. This is a question just confirming, do Ls have to take the assessment in their native language as well?
They have to take both an English assessment and a native language assessment to demonstrate that they are biliterate, because bi means two.
Even in their native language, and it has to be aligned to the ACTFL standards. And even if they have a certificate from their from back home or from one of the schools that teaches foreign languages, a Saturday school or whatever, those are not acceptable evidence. They must pass a proficiency-based assessment aligned to the ACTFL standards in order for it to qualify, and it has to be taken within the last since January of their junior year.
It would have to be one of those assessments that we share with you, so the Apple or the Stamp or the Alir, if it's a sign language one, so any of those acceptable assessments for the other language, the language that is other than English, to be used for the other piece to demonstrate biliteracy.
I'm glad you said that too, because it may not be the home language. They might be a Gujarati speaker at home, but they might be getting the seal in English and Spanish.
Right.
So,
Remember that you may have children who speak home language, but may not necessarily want to try to get the seal in that home language. They may opt to take that assessment in another language they were learning in school. So I know for a fact that when I was working on the district level, I had a lot of students who were not native speakers of Spanish who were trying to receive the seal in the Spanish language. So it doesn't really allow the student the freedom to choose what language they wish to receive the seal in.
I'm not sure if this is a question or information, but do students need to earn a 5 on all sections of the stamp in order to qualify for
And
the seal?
it's back down here. They will need to receive intermediate mid on writing, speaking, and reading, listening levels. So all sections need to have that 5 in order to receive intermediate mid.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So I've got a few more questions. Okay. Can you clarify that the cutoff for access is 4, not 4.5 for the purpose of attaining the seal?
For
is a 4.
biliteracy, it's a 4, as you see also
At the top here.
a score of 4 or better on tier B or C on the access for Ls.
Okay.
We know that 4.5 is the cutoff score for potential exiting programs, but for the seal of biliteracy, it's a 4.
There's a different
And it has
cutoff.
to be all language domains, whereas 4.5 is an overall score.
It has to be, there's a difference between getting the seal and then being exited from a program. So in order to show proficiency in the English language, all they need is a 4, but in all sections, the domains of language, versus 4.5, which is an overall score in order to be considered for exiting from the program.
Okay. Several more questions. Would the data pulled from vendors be from all the years? For example, if a student achieved passing on a portion of the assessment last year, passed the other portions this year, will all results from junior and senior year be pulled?
They are going to be pulling the latest exam results, but I know from the vendors that I spoke to, at least one of the vendors, who indicated that they are able to pull and see all these scores, but they will go with the highest score that they pull in order for the child to show that he or she has met the proficiency necessary to get the seal. So don't worry about it. They're aware of it. They're looking for your students, but you could speak to your vendor as well. Calling up your vendor, he or she might clarify for you what their criteria is and how they work with this.
Okay, that's good. Can you confirm the dates for testing? Is it second semester junior year and first semester senior year? I ask because the data is due March 1st, and that is second semester senior year.
It has to be the scores from junior year.
In other words, for the ELA or
I don't
So,
think the person
I-
has said.
any testing results from after January or January 1st of the junior year will be used for this exam. So whatever test you have that says child's proficient from that point on can be used.
Can 9th or 10th grade PARC scores be used?
Nothing from 9th or 10th grade will be considered for the seal.
Okay, here's another question. I have a student who passed I'm not sure I'm going to say this right, Elinomathia, a Greek test. Can I submit the results as a pilot for Greek?
Is it aligned to the ACTFL standards is my first question. Can you show the alignment? If you cannot show the alignment, we can't use it as criteria. Now, if you want to sit down and show me how this aligns to the ACTFL standards, and you have someone, I mean, this is a discussion we need to have, call me, but it needs to align to the ACTFL standards. Any test we use must align.
Okay. What is the process for using the portfolio appeals in order to demonstrate English proficiency?
Just like any portfolio appeal, you go through the process of the portfolio appeal. You call us, let us know who the students are from your district that could qualify for the seal, that are going through portfolio, and you have to call us so that I know, and that way we'll know to look for these scores.
And as soon as you know that, please let us know. As soon as you know that you're going to have a student using the portfolio for the English portion, please let us know as soon as you can.
Good. We have just a few more minutes. So somebody is asking to clarify, if juniors take the stamp after January, we don't submit their names until the senior year.
That is correct.
Right. Yeah.
Do not submit till senior year.
Okay, using the state ELA assessment as criteria, the PARC, does a student have to pass it during their junior year? Can we use 9th grade or 10th grade PARC scholars? We've already.
Nothing
asked
from
that
9th
question. Yeah.
or 10th grade will be
I'm
considered.
sorry, I think I already
That's
asked
okay.
that one. Okay, is the cutoff score, this is jumping around, I3 for the Apple? Last year it was I4.
No, it's right here on the screen. You can see it. I'll bring down the cursor. You will see that a score of level I3, which is intermediate mid, in all modes of the ACTFL apples.
Okay, so there's some confusion here. Somebody said, I believe an earlier slide identified 9th, 10th, or 11th ELA PARC scores were able to be used. Is
No,
that not accurate?
that
I
is
saw
not
that. I
correct.
think that's a mistake. I noticed that too, because I noticed a couple
Okay.
people asking those questions.
Yeah.
So,
And
on
someone
one of the
else wrote
slides.
that she's feeling confused. So I can indeed use scores from a test at any point after second semester junior year up to March 1st.
That's
senior
correct.
year.
That's
So that is
correct.
correct.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
As
correct.
long as we will have
Don't
them
be
in time.
confused. You're safe. That's good.
Okay. So let's see. Does anyone have information on a vendor aside from Californians Together that would be able to produce students medals they can wear at graduation, indicating they have attained the seal of biliteracy? If someone knows about vendors for producing these kind of things, send me a private email message. We can answer that question.
And you might want to ask that question of Trenton School District, because I do know that they had medals created. I'm not sure if that's where they got them from, but I do know that I saw those when I went to their ceremony.
Okay, somebody who somebody did medals but can't find the vendor. Okay,
Another one is Essex County VOTEC. They also developed medals.
okay. So did the score for the Apple change?
No, did not.
No, the scores are the same. So those of you who are experienced with this, which this is the group that we're talking to today, the scores didn't change. Some of the spreadsheet information changed, as you saw, but the scores didn't change, no. Not for the scores that we take as acceptable.
Somebody said they thought that any PARC score qualified last year. That was the case.
No, not any PARC score. There's the cutoff on PARC. It is, where is the PARC?
And somebody else is chiming in a little bit late saying, just to confirm, only current grade 12 students are eligible for the seal.
Right. but some of their information is based on what they did in junior year.
And the park score, you're looking that up, right?
Well, the park scores whatever is proficiency on the park.
Right.
So let's.
I think we're running out of time.
I'm looking for that proficiency. I'm trying to remember what the proficiency on the park is.
I'm sorry, proficiency, the website or the PowerPoint?
Let's
Yeah,
go
so
to.
everything's listed on
yeah.
the facts page as
We
people are
need to
saying.
go
And
to the
thank you
web.
all for sharing the
look for
resources that you're sharing right now. We want to thank you for attending today. We will send everybody who participated the newsletter that went out. You may have seen it, but if not, it will give you good information about